Imagine ruling almost all of continental Europe. Your armies are undefeated. Kings obey your commands. Entire nations collapse at the sound of your name. And yet, at the exact moment you stand closest to absolute power, everything has already begun to crack beneath your feet. 1810. Napoleon Bonaparte stands at the peak of power, unlike any European ruler since Charlemagne. From the Atlantic coast to the borders of Russia, from the North Sea to southern Italy, Europe bends to one man. But history hides a terrifying pattern. Empires rarely collapse when they are weak. They collapse when their rulers believe they are untouchable. After years of revolution and war, Napoleon now controls an empire larger than anything France had ever known. France itself has expanded to 130 departments stretching across Europe. Nearly 45 million people live under direct French rule. But Napoleon's influence extends far beyond France itself. His brothers and loyal marshals sit on foreign thrones like pieces on a chessboard. Joseph Bonaparte rules Spain, though much of the country still fights against French occupation. Louis Bonaparte remains King of Holland. Jérôme Bonaparte governs Westphalia. Joachim Murat rules Naples with extravagant style and endless ambition. Across Germany, the Confederation of the Rhine ties dozens of states directly to French power. The Duchy of Warsaw keeps alive Polish hopes of national rebirth under Napoleon's protection. By 1810, Europe is no longer balanced between competing powers. Europe revolves around Napoleon. The Grande Armée remains the most feared military force on earth. French artillery dominates battlefields. Napoleon's marshals are veterans of nearly 20 years of constant warfare. The speed of French campaigns shocks enemies again and again. Entire armies disappear within weeks once Napoleon personally takes command. To many Europeans, he no longer seems fully human. Kings lose battles. Napoleon destroys empires. But beneath all the victories lies a problem no battlefield genius can solve. Napoleon has no legitimate heir. His marriage to Joséphine de Beauharnais had once been one of the great romances of revolutionary France. She transformed the ambitious young Corsican officer into a political and social figure capable of rising to power. Napoleon adored her for years, but after 14 years of marriage, she still has not given him a son. And for an emperor building a dynasty, that is a disaster. Without a direct heir, everything Napoleon created could collapse into chaos after his death. Rivals would fight for power. European monarchies would circle like wolves. The empire might vanish overnight. So Napoleon makes the most painful decision of his personal life. On December 15, 1809, before the imperial court, Napoleon and Joséphine formally announced their divorce. Witnesses describe both struggling through tears during the ceremony. Napoleon reportedly tells her that he never stopped loving her. But love no longer matters. Europe is ruled by bloodlines. The empire demands a son. Then comes one of the most brilliant diplomatic moves of Napoleon's career. Instead of marrying a French noblewoman, he marries into one of the oldest royal dynasties in Europe, the Habsburgs. The bride is Archduchess Marie-Louise of Austria, daughter of Emperor Francis I. Just 1 year earlier, Austria had been crushed by Napoleon at the Battle of Wagram. Now the daughter of the defeated emperor is marrying the conqueror of Europe. To many people across Europe, the situation feels almost unreal. The man who once terrified monarchies during the French Revolution is now becoming part of Europe's royal elite. Napoleon, the son of a Corsican lawyer, is entering the same dynastic world as the Habsburgs, Bourbons, and Romanovs. On March 11, 1810, the marriage ceremony takes place in Vienna by proxy. Marshal Berthier represents Napoleon during the official wedding. Weeks later, Marie-Louise arrives in France for the grand imperial ceremony in Paris. The celebrations are enormous. Paris becomes a stage for imperial propaganda. Golden carriages roll through the streets. Fireworks illuminate the sky. Nobles, generals, diplomats, and royal guests gather beneath endless displays of luxury and power. Napoleon wants Europe to see something very clearly. His empire is not temporary anymore. It is becoming a dynasty. And unexpectedly, Napoleon truly falls in love with Marie-Louise. He writes to her constantly while traveling. He showers her with expensive gifts and attention. For the first time in years, the emperor appears genuinely content outside the battlefield. Politically, the marriage is a masterpiece. Austria is now tied directly to France. One of Napoleon's greatest enemies has temporarily become family. But while Europe watches imperial celebrations in Paris, something dangerous is already spreading beneath the surface of the empire: the Continental System. Since 1806, Napoleon had attempted something unprecedented in European history. If Britain could not be defeated at sea, then it would be destroyed economically. Napoleon ordered all European nations, under French influence, to stop trading with Britain completely. No British goods, no British ships, no cooperation with the British economy. In theory, Britain would collapse under economic pressure, but reality proves far more complicated. Britain suffers, but survives. The Royal Navy still dominates the oceans. British merchants expand trade with Latin America, India, and overseas colonies. Smuggling networks grow across Europe faster than French officials can stop them. Meanwhile, continental Europe begins suffering from the blockade almost as much as Britain itself. Prices explode. Sugar and coffee become luxuries. Merchants complain that trade is dying. Textile industries struggle in several regions. Farmers cannot export grain efficiently. Coastal communities secretly trade with British smugglers at night, while French customs officers desperately try to enforce Napoleon's economic war. Even members of Napoleon's own court secretly purchase British goods. The emperor responds the only way he knows how, with even greater control. In 1810, Napoleon issues the Trianon Decree and later the Fontainebleau Decree. Harsh tariffs are imposed. Smuggled goods are confiscated. Warehouses are raided. British products are publicly burned in massive displays meant to intimidate smugglers and merchants. But the harsher the system becomes, the more resentment spreads across Europe. And nowhere is that resentment more dangerous than in Russia. Back in 1807, after the treaties of Tilsit, Napoleon and Tsar Alexander III had appeared almost like allies. Their famous meeting on a raft in the middle of the Niemen River stunned Europe. The two emperors spoke for hours, while Europe wondered whether they would divide the continent between them. But beneath the smiles, distrust never disappeared. Russia's economy depends heavily on exports such as timber, grain, hemp, and raw materials. The Continental System damages Russian trade severely. Russian nobles lose enormous amounts of money. Merchants grow increasingly furious. Many Russians begin believing that Napoleon is using the alliance to dominate Europe, while Russia pays the economic price. Then in 1810, Alexander effectively begins pulling Russia out of the blockade. British goods quietly enter Russian ports under neutral flags. Trade restrictions loosen. French diplomats immediately recognize the danger. The alliance is beginning to collapse. Napoleon only makes the situation worse when he annexes the Duchy of Oldenburg, a small German territory ruled by one of Alexander's relatives. To Napoleon, it seems like a minor territorial adjustment. To the Russian Tsar, it is a direct insult. From that moment onward, relations between France and Russia deteriorate rapidly. By 1811, Europe enters a strange atmosphere of nervous silence. Officially, France and Russia are still at peace. Unofficially, both empires are preparing for war on a scale never seen before. Napoleon begins gathering men from every corner of Europe. Recruitment expands dramatically. Weapons factories increase production. Horses are purchased by the tens of thousands. Massive food depots are organized across Eastern Europe. The scale of preparation is staggering. And this new Grande Armée is no longer simply French. Poles join with dreams of restoring their nation. Germans from the Confederation of the Rhine march under French banners. Italians, Dutch, Swiss, Croatians, and many others are drawn into Napoleon's military machine. Even Austria and Prussia, defeated and humiliated in previous wars, are forced to provide troops for the coming campaign. By the end of 1811, Napoleon is assembling the largest army Europe has ever seen. More than 600,000 men will eventually march east. But hidden inside this enormous force lies a dangerous weakness. Many soldiers do not speak French. Many do not truly support Napoleon. Some fight only because their governments have no choice. Others secretly hate the empire they serve. The coalition holding Europe together is beginning to strain under its own weight. Meanwhile, Russia is preparing as well. Russian generals study defensive strategies. Supply depots are moved deeper inland. Plans are discussed for trading space in exchange for time if Napoleon invades. Both sides understand something terrifying. The next war will not resemble previous campaigns. It will be larger, longer, more destructive. And somewhere beneath all the confidence and military parades, even Napoleon himself may have sensed it. Because by the end of 1811, he appears stronger than ever before. He has an heir, a massive empire, the greatest army on earth. Most European rulers obey him directly or indirectly. And yet the atmosphere across Europe feels strangely tense, almost unnatural, as if the continent itself is holding its breath. Napoleon reportedly declares, "In 3 years, I shall be master of the world." But history can be cruelly ironic, because at the exact moment Napoleon believes he stands closest to total victory, he is already marching toward catastrophe. The empire has expanded too far. Its economy is under pressure. National resistance is growing. Spain continues bleeding French troops endlessly. And now the fragile peace with Russia is collapsing. The greatest invasion in modern European history is coming. Soon, 600,000 soldiers will cross the Niemen River and march into Russia, and only a fraction of them will ever return.